This episode was filmed at our Square One studio in San Anselmo, California. If you would like to have help telling your story, whether that be a podcast, workshop, something that you want to share with the world, even if it's just a memorial of your life or telling your life story for future generations to come, go to www.squareone.studio. That is a website. It will work if you enter it that way. And for more of us, to watch older episodes, please go to hellohumans.co. And welcome to another episode of the How to Human podcast. If you're new here, welcome. My name is Sam Lamott. I'm a teen dad, ex-meth ed college dropout. I claim no moral, intellectual, or spiritual superiority to you. And at the end of the day, I am just trying to have conversations about what it's like being a human and learning how to be a better human or a more useful human to my friends, family, and community. My best friend and I recently built a beautiful new studio for us and for clients and people who want help telling their story in San Anselmo, California, called Square One Studio. You can go to our website, www.squareone.studio. It's a website. It works. Just trust me. And when we got back into the studio to start recording podcast episodes, my interests in the people I wanted to talk to has changed slightly. And it might be because I'm spending more time off social media, but I have been finding myself more interested in the people I talk to in the grocery store than the influencers or authors or amazing people. There are celebrities and stars who I love. A lot of them have been on this show. There are others who I would love to have on the show one day, but I just feel a calling to talk to, for lack of a better word, like regular people, like people living regular lives, figuring out how to pay their bills, be parents to their children, and participate in the world at the level I participate in, which is not as a special, but just another human on the planet trying to get by. And so when I started thinking about who I wanted to have on the show, the answer is just some of the people I've gotten to know personally over the years who are not influencers. Some of them might not have websites or programs to sell you or books that you can read, but just people who I have grown to admire, people who have played some role in my life. And I think the next couple episodes, maybe more than a couple, are just going to be conversations like this. So to start us off, I invited my friend Rob. I know him as Rob the Tiger Man because we met in a tea bar called the Tea Temple. And he was drawing pictures of tigers. And we'll talk about that in the episode. But in my life, Rob has been a really good human. This is somebody who has texted me when I have fallen out of the loop and started to isolate. This is somebody who has given me really good advice as an older man to a younger man, and somebody who has used his time here on the planet to help his community and help the people around him, both as a profession, but also just with his spare time, which, you know, for some of us, that's the best that we can do. He worked in the Oakland Unified School District, helping kids who are struggling, and he's going to tell you more about that. But at the end of the day, this is somebody who I admire for his courage to just be who Rob is, and somebody who I thought would be fun to share with the listeners or viewers, if you're one of our patrons, of this program. So without further ado, here is my episode with Rob Dousa, or as I have him saved in my phone, Rob the Tiger Man. Hey, Rob.
How's it going, Sam?
It is good to have you in studio.
Very good to be here.
You're a second guest in studio.
Wow.
And you also, for me, mark a really important moment in what I want our next podcast episodes to really be about, which is about regular people. Like, it's cool having these mega celebrities. I enjoy them. But recently I found myself really just connecting with the people in my community, the people that I've known. You're somebody that I've known for a couple years. And I'm just excited to have you on, because I think that you miss something when you talk to just the people who got, a combination of being incredibly talented and lucky breaks to get big exposure. You miss I don't know how to quite distill it, the struggle. And life is really a struggle. And for me, I still find life almost as hard as I found it when it was at its hardest, just hard in different ways. And I'm just going to start off like this. You and I met in a tea shop, and I would say, you can correct me if I'm wrong, I would say there's almost an instant kind of gravitational pull. I think for me, there's always a hole in my heart to have a kind, strong, older man in my life. And I think for you, there must have been some kind of connection similar, where you knew I needed some kind of mentorship. And we just started meeting at the tea shop and hanging out and talking. And we got as deep as conversations could get. And so in this kind of conversation, we're going to find out real time what's public and what's private. And you can just jump and go, whoa, hey, bud. But let's just get going.
Everybody has a story.
Everybody has a story, and not everybody has put it together. Not everybody has figured out what the overarching narrative of their story is. Some people need a little bit more help fishing it out. That's not the case with you. I think you're pretty clear. But I love your story. I love what you're doing. I love your energy, and I'm so grateful. We met at a pretty dark time in my life, and you were a pretty positive force in it. And I think, you're the type of guy that would check in on me, send texts to me, ask how I'm doing, even when I couldn't respond back. And that's a lot to me. So let's get going. Who are you?
My pleasure, Sam. Who am I? Good question. Well, I'm the kind of person, who am I? Well, my nickname is Skip, which I think is fun. And I was always in high school called Skip. And my high school reunion is actually tomorrow night, so that's kind of fun. Going to go with my sister. And that kid was somebody who just loved to run around and play and jump. And and then unfortunately, I was come from a really difficult background. Both parents, I think, had abuse in their early lives, and they took it out on their kids. And my father especially took it out on his kids. He never hit my mom, but he would hit us until my mom said she'd had enough of the sound. So then that made me feel like I wasn't important enough to protect. So back to the kid that's running, now I'm jumping from staircase to staircase, down off of fences, no regard for my body. I pay for a little bit now. I'm still athletic. I'm still an athlete. I play softball twice a week. I umpire softball about 20 games a week. I love it. But I needed help, growing up. So in high school, one of the greatest interventions that ever happened to me, Dad was finally leaving. I was ready to kick his ass. Yes. It took my mother. I'm still angry about it, to be honest. And I've done a lot of work on forgiving them both, but she didn't protect us. So when he finally left, she went to work. I was the oldest. We're in San Francisco in the Mission, in the deeper part of the Mission, next to Hunters Point. And I'm responsible now. Silver Street, Silver Avenue.
I know Silver Ave.
Yeah. And so now I'm responsible. And one day I was pounding my head on the desk at school, and the principal walked up to me and asked me if he could do anything. And I just was like, because I felt either I was going to go kill somebody or kill myself that day. That's how crazed I felt. And he says, are you hungry? And I said, no, I'm tired. He said, come with me. He let me sleep for a couple hours. He saved my life. That's an example of what was needed. And through a series of those over the next 20 some years, it finally changed me from victim to I want to be able to do that for somebody else. It was a magical moment when it happened. It was part of an AA 4th and 5th step with my sponsor. And after giving it out, giving all my garbage out and trying to forgive everybody, I just had this feeling of freedom like you would not believe. Like chains came off, like I was carrying a dumpster behind me. And I just said, wow, I want to do this for somebody else. That was 25 years ago. And I've been on that mission ever since. And I believe that's why my life was saved. Several drunk drivings. I never hit anybody. I never crashed. I fell asleep at the wheel all the time. And I'd get woken up by the bumps on the road. It was actually my plan to take myself out right before sobriety. I was going to crash into the Bay Bridge, die by suicide. And not that it would look like suicide, I hoped, so that my family could get the $500,000 life insurance. And that was what I thought my life was worth before sobriety. So when I felt that freedom of having my life saved, I said, this is why I'm alive. I'm to give this message to help another person out of it. And I'm to show up whenever asked. And because of following that path, I've been blessed.
Wow. As someone who was abandoned by my father and had many opportunities to come back, I can picture a little bit what it feels like for an adult to come in your life and to say, hey, you matter. And let's figure out what matters to you. And in that moment, it sounds like with the principal, you needed rest. Before we jump into what's going on now, which is cool, and I have some funny stories that came up when I was thinking about having you on the show, tell us a little bit about that transformation to wanting annihilation, to feeling that energy, which I know, especially as a young man. I don't know, what it would feel like to be a young woman, but I know as a young man, I had so much energy that had nowhere to go. And I got some relief in wrestling. I got some relief in fighting. I got some relief in just horsing around and physicality with the guys. But at its core, there was pain and there was suffering. I was a sensitive guy. I felt the injustice going on in my own life. I felt the injustices going on in the world, or at least what I had pegged as injustices at that age. And I worry about that a bit these days. Like, I feel like a lot of what I was would have, we'll just stick to what happened. What happened was I grew up in Marin County, and it's a very left-leaning, hippie, peacenik kind of place. And I didn't fit that mold in a way. I wanted to do battle with Athena, and I wanted to test myself, and I wanted to be a physical being, and it was very confusing. I love my mother, and she has always been in my life, except when I was really out there. She had to give me the boot and had to cut me off completely. But I really, in some ways, still feel the gaping hole that was left by some lack of place for that energy to go. And sounds like, listening to you, you had two parents who did not have the tools for you. To put it generously, they did not have the tools for you. Your dad, which it sounds like you've come to an understanding with the spirit of your father, really sucked. To put it plain, simple English. And your mom didn't know how to create a safe place for you at the very least.
Narcissism, both of them.
Yeah.
Just totally into themselves. And unfortunately, narcissism breeds narcissism. Because as a kid, I had to learn to take care of myself. I had to be selfish. So undoing that also has been part of my journey.
Can we talk a bit about the stages of that development? Like, so you're the guy jumping down flights of stairs and just
physical. I can bust through a tackle. I can out-juke you. I can defend you in basketball. I can catch anything that's hit to me in baseball, and this is my thing. And then trying so hard without regard for my body, I tear my knee. I have 3 knee surgeries, 14, 15, and 16 years old. So my dream of getting out of this life, of being a professional athlete, when the 3rd operation, my knee buckled at full speed. I was done. And I was pissed, And I also got sober at 16 for about 6 months because of bad trips. Before that, when I first discovered drugs, I had freedom from that mess. I had freedom from the feeling bad about myself, the voices that told me I wasn't good enough, and I discovered some nirvana, with MDMA and mushrooms a little bit and a lot of hashish. I started to find nirvana spaces, and I thought, this is cool, man. And so I've always sought this freedom, this peace of mind, right? But at 16, I start controlling it because I had really bad trips that made me get sober. So now I'm only going to do marijuana and alcohol, and I'm going to count. And before that, I was just no regard, right? So it was a challenge. And so then that goes for the next 20 some years, trying your hardest to control it, losing it. All of a sudden, why am I in the bar at 2 a.m.? Why is my debit card empty from cocaine, 24 hours after getting some? What happened? Okay. So then I'd go not do anything for 2-3 weeks. And then gradually, I just couldn't handle the noise in my head. So I needed something to get rid of all the injustice that had been pushed down inside me, right? And it wasn't until I got to Alcoholics Anonymous and that transformation, to be honest with you, I don't care what they had on the walls. I don't care what they had in their books. What mattered was they said, hey, welcome. We're glad you're here. Sit down. No, don't leave yet. We want to talk to you. Where are you going? Why don't you have some coffee with us? Here, have some more coffee. I literally would sit in those meetings with my dirty ass feet up on the table because I had a problem with taking any advice from any adult, male or female, due to the PTSD I'd had from anybody getting within my space. So that was like a message, don't come near me. And yet they did, right? And that's really the answer that I believe that all people need, is that feeling of safety emanating from another human being. Like, I help regulate people now. I had to get myself regulated. I had to receive the beautiful energy, and I do, willingly, gladly, gratefully, because I no longer have that negative concept about myself. Neither do I have that really about my parents. They were damaged people. They did the best they could with what had happened to them. They didn't have the benefit of the love and the support and the psychology and whatever, however I'm made to desire that freedom, to have that understanding of how life works and psychology and behavior works. Why they didn't have that and why I had it, I don't know. But I truly know that they would do better if they could, if they were raised different. So I'm all about trying to create that early development for children, and then restoring young people back to who that person is. It's not a lot of rocket science in my approach. It's really, I want to help somebody discover their beautiful 2-year-old self. Because at 2, if you were in my house or some of these other homes, when that door went up and the garage door went up and you knew dad was home, all of a sudden it's like, whoop. Where's he? Which dad is it? I'm not playing anymore. I'm 2, 3, 4, 5 years old. I'm in dad's head, his story. That I lose touch with who I am. I'm in survival mode. And so many young people are in that state. So what I really want to do is help young people tell them that you no longer have to follow that story. You have the power to write your own story and have it based upon the natural gifts and passions that you have and what you care about. And let's go. Let's go do this great stuff. Let's thrive. So the technique is really about redirecting kids into thriving by changing their mental mindset towards something that they really want to achieve and teaching them how to win. So it took me a while to get there, to learn all these techniques.
Scoot that chair forward a tiny bit just to get us back. There you go. Are we still in frame and good? So let's just jump in. One of the things I learned pretty quick about you is you were, at the time, you were running this program in Oakland. It was scrappy. You were filing for your own grants. You were working with public school districts. You know, nobody was holding your hands. Tell us about how it started, what it was, how it came to be, because it seems like it's just, I want to take this conversation.
That's cool.
And some pace, and there's just this thing bursting out of you. So let's just get to it. We can edit it after the fact.
That's fine. That's fine.
Yeah.
So it actually started in AA. I started talking to kids on a volunteer basis. Somebody said, you should get into service, a greater amount of service. So I raised my hand and I start becoming this chairman for the county of setting up talks to go talk to kids. So at the same time, because of my drug use, because of my behavior, my infidelity with my wife, and the fact that she also was very judgmental she just never forgave me for it. And she beat me up in front of the kids and she blamed me for everything and she painted me black. So here I am sober 3-4 years and I'm not seeing my kids. And it's this big hole in my heart. And I get this opportunity to talk to kids and I can't tell you, man. The teacher said, let's write him cards. And I would sit in my room and read those cards and see something good said about me and they were grateful. And that shit was gold, man. And so then I got asked after about a year or so, because of my video production experience, there was an opportunity to volunteer at Hayward High School and do a DMV prevention video with high school students. And I said, sure, be glad to, right? And afterwards, on the assembly, and I talked to the entire audience, 1,000 people, and I was just so grateful. And I said, I just ask everybody, just please don't drink and drive, man. You know, it's not worth it. I did it a bunch of times and I got lucky. You're not going to be like me, so please don't, right? Walk into my car. They tap me on the shoulder and they say, hey, you want to do this 20 hours a week? I said, yeah. Are you kidding me? Yeah, because I was a sober bartender at that time. I was bartending sober.
Which are the best bartenders, by the way. I've talked to bar owners.
It's not fun.
No.
Because you got to listen to stories over and over again.
You don't steal from the till and you don't drink the product.
No, I had quit stealing from the till the day I joined AA. Can we edit that out? But that's true. So anyway, after I did that for a couple of years, the money, and we would do some crazy stuff. And you talk about that energy, right? I was working sometimes 17 hours a day to put on those assemblies. And I'd do all this video editing for 7 schools at the same time. We were doing it in 7 schools at the same time. Whew. But it was everything to me. That was me. That I'm doing something good with my life. I'm not doing something bad. So I just poured all my energy into that. And I still wasn't like really taking good care of myself, not really eating right. You know, I wasn't definitely making time for love, or, you know, I was always on my own case. You know, shame was one of the biggest things to change. And it was going to change in a few more years, not yet. So anytime I'd make a mistake, I'd always be on my case. Anyway, I poured myself into it. After 2 years, the money ran out. And then someone asked me, you're really good at talking to kids. Do you want to be trained on how to talk to kids about marijuana interventions? I said, sure. So I did that for Castro Valley for a year. And then the guy in Oakland said, you want to come to Oakland and do this? So I come to Oakland and I can see who the people are. I'm so dedicated to the kids. Like, I show up every day. I'm seeing like 10, 12 kids a day at every school site. I'm doing more, I'm sorry to brag, but I'm doing more than everybody else, the other 3 counselors combined. After 2005, they said, why don't you be the supervisor of this program? great. And I keep on learning techniques, and now I'm responsible for training these folks. I wasn't sure I wanted to do that, but I did it. And then I started getting better at it.
And what school district is
Oakland
this?
Unified.
Yeah.
And
Tough school district.
Yeah. I first show up and they go, can you help these kids? And I start talking to the kids, and it wasn't knowledge that was going to help them. It was what's going on underneath.
Go in deeper to that. I want to hear more.
So what's their underlying issues? Do they struggle with self-worth? Is there domestic violence in their house? Is there grief, their best friend? In Oakland, the average kid loses at least one friend in their lifetime during the school years. And 20% of the fifth graders have lost 3. It's insane. So by 11th grade, you can imagine what it's like. And we're getting these kids, after several years of failing in the school system, being labeled as no good, and they've got this negative belief about themselves. So I needed to find something that would shift that negative belief. So I was working really hard, like, propping them up, promoting them. It just so happens that I was thinking about leaving my job because I had a boss that was micromanaging me. It was my third boss in Oakland. This was like 2008. And I asked my friend, Ira Sacknoff, who's a fantastic peer education resource leader. He would be a great guest on this show. He gave me a life coach friend, and I go to her and she gives me a strengths test. We just had 3 sessions, but in the strengths test, I realized I was built for this work. And I'm very passionate about this work. So therefore, I'm staying where I'm at. 6 months go by, and I'm finally talking to this really difficult kid. And he's 17. He's at a continuation school. And they say, good luck. He's always comatose. He's so high and all this kind of stuff. So I started talking to him. And after the third session, I realized it's not really going to help, because every time I saw him again, he had a new relapse trigger. Like, we coached him up on like how to avoid his friends or how to make different friends, and he still relapsed on something else, right? So finally, it's just popped into my head. Hey, have you ever taken a strengths test? So I give him the strengths test. He tests like a CEO or an executive director of a nonprofit. We go over it in detail and reflect it with his life. He identifies with the characteristics of the executive director. We make a plan. What do you want to do? Have your own business or have your own nonprofit community center? I want to have my own community center in West Oakland. We create a little plan for that. And I go, what can we do today? So what could you be doing today that will start you on that path? He says, I could go volunteer or work at the community center, the local community center. So I coach him up on introducing himself and he gets employed there. I show up at the school 3 weeks later, and the principal stops me in the hallway. What'd you say to him? I was like, what do you mean? He goes, he's doing great. He's paying attention. He's listening. I said, well, that's cool, man. You know what else? He's really smart. You should invite him into your staff meetings and ask for his opinion on how to make this place a better school. And that was the magical day, because from that point on, we've been giving the strengths test to every kid, about 600 a year, and turning their lives around. So I turned it into a life coaching program. And it don't matter why you got to come talk to me, because you're doing drugs. I ended up at the end in Oakland, I had 15 coaches. And I also got myself certified as a coach, 4 different kinds of coaching methods. I got my team certified. We went through trainings. And I still teach it. I'm doing 2 workshops in July. One is on how to take the early childhood developmental needs of a kid that's not met yet as a teenager, and how to get them to meet those needs as a teenager. And the second training I'm doing is how to use a 4-step process of coaching young people towards success. And that's where it really rocked and rolled. And that's when, because I found something that really worked. Redirecting the mindset, using the strengths and the passions of the person, coaching them up so they could be successful, getting them to win. And it's done wonders for me, because what's good for the goose is good for the gander.
I got a story that happened. It was a revelation. We do this book club, right? So people who help support the show join Patreon. If you want to, you can read book with me. And it's kind of like doing the podcast. In the podcast, like, I have time to think about how to frame this conversation. I have time to kind of think about how do I want to navigate it? Do I want to take a more forward role? Do I want to take a more, anyway. this is much more raw, right? We're all kind of stream of consciousness working real time. I'm watching people's process real time. They're watching my process real time. It's uglier than the show is because the show gets such a white glove treatment to respect people's time. And somehow this was a group process. I can't take credit for it, but somehow we get to talking about matter, not the physical matter, but like the thing that humans can do, which is to take things and make them matter, right? Like every kid had a stuffed animal that mattered to them, or a toy that mattered to them, or something. And I come up with, or the group comes up with this idea, hey, for the next week, let's try to, every single person we talk to, let's try to figure out what matters to them and then make it matter to us because it matters to them. And obviously my son is the guinea pig for this. And he loves games. A lot of kids love video games. I liked video games when I was his age. I still play, but just not in the same way. And to me, I've always looked at it as kind of like, ugh, stupid, waste of time. What does this matter? So he would be coming up to me, showing me, hey, Dad, I just won a round. Hey, Dad, look at this new gear I got. And because I saw video games as a distraction and something stupid and that you should be figuring out if you want to be a doctor or a lawyer or what, because I don't want you to end up as a college dropout like me. So I take a different approach and I start going, hey, show me that video game you like. And he explained every ins and out that he liked about this particular game. He showed me what he liked about the gameplay, what he liked. So I start playing and we start playing together. I didn't realize how hard this video game was to play, and it started to put everything into context, right? And so like I would love him to be doing certain things, but it's not my life. It's his life. And it has been transformative. Not only are we spending a lot more time together, the things that I do find important, he's now sharing with me too, and participate. There's been a give and take a little bit. And for us to have this slightly different relationship, it's a really subtle twist. But just to go rather, what do I want? What do I think's best to you? To, I'm still the dad. It's still my choice at the end of the day. But just to go, oh, hey, this has got you energized. Let's see why. And let's see what's there. And this is one of those things that I'm going to talk about. And I'm just going to have to tell myself that if I want to do this meditation, this is the rest of my life. I will go in and out of it. And so I don't want to paint a picture of like, oh, I tried this thing and it worked. I'm going to be doing it all the time. But I have found it to be such a superpower.
Can we talk about this for a quick second?
Yes, we can.
Very powerful what you just did. So what you did was you reflected back. He had the opportunity to process with you. So if he decided after talking to you that this was not exactly everything, you helped him see himself by simply asking him, tell me about this, show me this kind of cool stuff. And that's what we want to do. We want young people to be more self-aware. And so he didn't have to defend him doing it and put his thought energy into that. He got to talk with a non-judgmental person who let him see it for himself. And when you do that, and if he has good values, he will make good decisions. And this is what you just did with him. You're also modeling for him, what kind of mentor would he like to have? What kind of boss would he like to have? Somebody who values his opinions and values his ideas.
Yeah, people want to be loved and people want to matter.
But they teach us. Didn't you say your son taught you a few things about the video game and you learned some things? So that's an opportunity that we get to have when we get to find out what people do and who they are and why they do what they do.
Yeah, he taught me more about myself in the sense that I was trying to shove a square peg into a round hole. And I do this with everybody because I'm a genius and I just know what's best for you, right? Obviously, I know what's best for you. If you just listen to me, your whole life would be better. But it helped me to take a totally different, it was kind of like repositioning, like fighting down in the valley and then realizing, oh, it would be better? Let's retreat a little bit up the hill and just have a different stance. And it made me less of a boss of all the situations in my life and more of just a participant.
Can I add something to that? So what you did was you switched to a facilitative style of leadership instead of a directing kind of style of leadership.
Well, I would say switching because it's a work in progress.
Right.
But yeah,
but,
I get what
you're
you're
facilitating with him. And what's great about facilitative leadership, and this is the process we use with young people, and where we're interviewing them, we're using an interview process, is it's like, oh, because I kind of already know, like, oh, it'd be really good for this kid to get in a nonprofit, right? But I'll just like, so what do you like? You know, and then have you thought of being in a nonprofit? It's not saying you should. If he doesn't think of it as a facilitative leader, I can just put it out there. Have you thought about being a nonprofit? Oh, so you really like this video game because of what? Oh, wow. Tell me more. And then does this make you happy? How do you feel, son, after playing these video games? You know? And some people, of course, with social media, and if anyone's listening who's got kids or mentoring a young person, social media also can be a dark place where you don't meet your friend, or you get let down, or somebody doesn't like your post, or they say something really mean about you. And so we have to facilitate. We could use the same process. So how did you feel after this session, which you just had with social media, blah, 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 whatever? We really didn't, I felt like this. Do you think you want to keep on doing it? I'm not going to say don't do it. I'm going to ask you, do you think you want to keep on doing it? I don't know. I'm not sure what else to do. You know what? Why don't we go fishing today? And so you throw something nice at them. And you show them something different where they get to feel good. And there's an opportunity because there's a hole there, right? There's something missing. Like the social media didn't fill their hole. So now you really want to offer something sweet that will work, that'll be really tasty to them, that'll make them engage more in life and give them some good direction. And knowing your son and anyone that knows their own kids, remember what they like when they're little. You can feed them that anytime.
Yeah.
That's really cool that you just came upon that, man.
Well, it was all in a group. I'm becoming a bigger and bigger fan of doing almost everything in group settings. I learned that in recovery. But now I'm learning that in creativity. And it started really with a therapist who just said, hey, you either got to get a job at a company with lots of people, or you got to start doing things with more people, because you doing this thing on your own, it's not working.
Imagine a person that interprets the Bible all by themselves. That's pretty scary.
Yeah. Well, people do all the time.
But one of the things, it was a big turning point. I used to not want to share my video making. And then they said, we want you to make videos with kids. Oh, I don't know. Once I started doing that, what a joy, because I could see what they would create. And we were creating better stuff. So I quickly, I guess, matured to where it doesn't have to be all about me and my idea. I want the best idea possible. I was fortunate that happened like in 2003 for me, because I use that approach all the time now. I always ask my people what they think is best. I ask the kids what they want to do. Like you make the final call as the dad. I'm the final call as the leader. But I want to know what's best, and I want to make the coolest ass stuff. And then you want to know a secret, Sam? I always ask Holy Spirit, God, universe, whatever you want to call it. I invite them in on the conversation because they know and they see. So I want to be open to wherever the answers can come from. And as a facilitative leader, so if I ask you a question and say intuition or subconscious or God pops up with, hey, have you thought of this, Sam? Then I'm going to say it like that. Because that's my role, my deal with God. And I remember the first time I went to talk to those kids, I didn't know what I was going to say, and I just made this prayer. I said, God, I offer myself to thee. Use me, God. I have no clue what to say. Just go ahead. I volunteer. And that process is amazing because you really can connect with people. You're using your intuition, their subconscious, my subconscious. I just need to have one ear on those other things and one ear on the person, and the ideas pop. And it's super cool. It's magic. I love it. I love that you shared the magic. Thank you. That makes me really happy to hear about you and your son.
I'm experiencing a little bit of a transformation of myself. It might have been that I hit the right age, so now it's like I'm open to it. But I am growing And I'm curious to see where it leads and really want to stay on the path of this growth, which mostly means getting out of my own way. I started working during COVID. I took a part-time job, and I was teaching kids outdoor skills. That's one of the skills I have. It was incredibly rewarding. And I noticed, these guys and girls, these kids, mostly guys, but they are very privileged in a very affluent area. And so the problems that came up during that are, a lot of them I think are consequences of that. But, I saw that most of my problem kids were really high energy, would never listen to me, would act out, do things to get attention, basically. And in the first couple weeks, I'm going home every day just going, God, that fucking kid, man. That because these were smart kids too, so they could really look under your armor and try and find out where all your weak spots are, and they'll say anything to get a rise. And about 3 weeks in, the biggest problem kid turns to me and he goes, my mom is never around. And I thought, what? Oh, okay. Do you wish she was? Yes. Oh. Do you want to talk about it? And he goes, my mom leaves for weeks at a time for business trips. And I hate my nanny. And he just keeps going on and going on. And that was the first time I met that kid.
Right.
For real.
Right.
I wasn't meeting the bodyguard of that kid. I wasn't meeting and that's when it clicked. And I'm like, this young man has such a gap of attention that he's filling up his, we met on Fridays. He's filling up his week's worth of attention here in 5 hours, of course. And that helped a lot, and it helped me a lot too, just to cool it with my snap judgments and really cool it with me thinking I know what's going on, or saying like, hey, you're misbehaved. You're a misbehaved kid.
I'm going to give you another guy. Could be a great guest. Charlie Applestein wrote a book called There's No Such Thing as a Bad Kid. And it's where I get a lot of my information from. And he talks about a kid like that is stating his needs. His needs are coming out like calling you names or messing with you, but he's getting attention, right? So the technique, which you use a great technique listening to him, but you could reframe it. Realize that I see, you're doing a great job getting attention for yourself. I see that. I also see that people kind of are resistant to get close to you. So I was wondering if I could show you how you could get attention, but also get people on your side. Would you like to learn how to do that? And it's like reframing and bridging to a more positive behavior. And because he's not, you found out he's not doing it because he's a jerk. He's doing it because he has a need. When you look past this is what was really dope about working in Oakland. I'm a white male coming to Oakland at a time when it's mostly black principals, and the schools are in disarray because they just got taken over. So there's a lot of dysfunction. So kid does not have to talk to me. So I have to really be authentic and listen to them and look for the good in the kid. So, man, I don't want to talk to you, man. What do you got to say for me? So you're doing a great job, man. Protecting yourself. I get it, man. I just want to know what's happening with you. What's going on? What are you dealing with? And, usually the first 2 sessions, they would just bounce out on me. I'd have some food, some music. But I kept coming to their house, not to their house, but to their room and to pull them out of class. And they realized this dude really cares. I tried to push him away like all the other adults do. They don't really want to be around me. So you know what? I'm going to be in control. I'm going to push him away. So because at least I'm in control of when that happens. Because all these other adults, they just push me away or leave me. So when you show up like that, you continue to show up they realize you really are there and you mean it. And I can tell you, it was so rewarding for my heart that I didn't know if I would be effective in Oakland. It was my heart that I got to find out about. My heart was good to be effective in Oakland. And that was so rewarding. And it's so the technique's really grounded in that.
Tell me a little bit more, because the kids I worked with are very different than Oakland Unified Public School District.
Well,
right?
let me tell you,
you have kids that are going to end up in gangs, or that's their inheritance, as their parents are in gangs, or you have kids that are, even if they have great parents, their parents might have 2 jobs, which is a real thing. The Bay Area is incredibly expensive, and that is a school district that doesn't have a high median income. So talk to us about the process.
To bring a person into healing, it's great if there's a home to come back to. Like in my case, I didn't ever have loving parents. I really relate to these kids in Oakland. The worst thing that can happen to any person is at home is when you get the hell beat out of you. And I mean, I was thrown against walls. My father punched me in my face and knocked me out when I was 13 because I brought a black friend over the house. And when I went to his family's house, there was like 6 kids. They were poor. They divided up the food equally and gave me an equal share. So how do you think that made me feel, right? So without home, we have complex post-traumatic stress disorder. And what we need to do is teach them, we need to find a way for them to find a home, to find safety, and I had to find that for myself. I tried a lot of things, through sex, through drugs, ultimately it was shame that was the thing that I had to beat. And I want to tell the story about that, and how that's how I shifted the type of recovery I've done in order to be free from that and to be I feel the powerful man that I am now. But to just talk more about those kids. So we have to meet their basic needs first so that they feel like it's home. And then just like if the kid can play and have fun, so you really kind of do more play therapy in Oakland at first. And then once they're comfortable with you, then you can start to introduce some more intellectual pursuits. With the older kids, they're not even, that's with the younger kids. And with the older kids, like 17, 18, they're not down for that. They're finished. But they want a career. They want to make money. So with them, you really got to get into, you want to be an entrepreneur? Let's get into it. You want to learn video production? Music production? You want to, whatever you want to get into, they were very interested in practical making money. And in terms of working on the issues, that's going to come later, just like it did for me, sort of like it's for you as an adult, for me as an adult. I didn't really start working on those childhood issues till I was like 37, 38 years old is when I began. And I'm still working on it today. So it changes, right? But we really have to offer ourselves as flexible tools for these young people in Oakland and wherever you are, and here too. So I just collected a lot of data on the kids in Marin, and the depression and the suicide rate is very alarming. There's too much pressure coming from society, from parents. Seems like everyone is affected across the world about what had happened during the pandemic. But these young people, where's home for them? So a little kid going into these pandemic situations, whoa, how do they come back to life? How does this middle school kid come back to integrating back with society? For high school kids they've been in society, but then pandemic separated them for a little while, it's not as bad, right? So this concept of helping people build a home, like where is nurturing? Like 2 people break up. Well, I do couples counseling too, and there's no chance in hell if they never loved each other in the first place and they were never happy together. But if they were, and they are, then what we can do is highlight that and bring it back to life and say, what's more important, don't you want to be with this person that you really love? But because they had that together, we can put them back together. But without that, it'd be pretty rare for them to discover it at that point. So that's what working with the young people is like, is finding out what you can get them to regulate with and then thrive from. And you really don't want to, every kid's different. Let me put it this, it's like a cooking show. Intervention in my life, in my experience, is like a cooking show where I open the refrigerator. Ooh, this is who's showing up today. Even if I've talked to this kid 5 times, who showed up today? What's going to work? And what's my job? To make something good out of what's in front of me right now. And I love it because it's so creative and innovative. And that's why I need God. That's why I need God and Holy Spirit and the universe in helping me to do this. You know, I'm just an instrument.
I want to talk about what it means to build a home and how if you could, you know, which a lot of these things are completely outside your control, but if you could, let's say if the parents came to you and said, hey, we want to get on board with our son or daughter's progress, what can we do? What do you think are the key ingredients of a home? I'll list a couple. To feel safe, right? Probably first is, you know, the way I've always phrased it to anyone living in my home or frequently in my home is I go out into the world, I do battle, I participate in the culture. I think our culture is incredibly sick. And in a lot of ways, I don't want to participate, but I do want to be an adult and I do want to be part of it. And, you know, when I come home, I don't want a war. You know, I've done my battle out in the world. This is a safe place. And that is easier said than done. It's easier for me to sit here talking to you saying that, but really a home should be an insulation from it. And we have some challenges with that, right? We have the internet, we have social media. We're now bringing the culture, bringing the outside world into our homes, which is something, you know, I'm going to entrust everybody to navigate for themselves personally. For me, I am way more careful about picking up that phone and about hopping on social media. You know, most of my life, I kind of grew up like, yeah, I'm an American or I'm a West Coaster or I'm this, and kind of just like I am a part. Now I have a much greater distance from the whatever you would call the mixing of all ourselves. I call it the culture, right? Where I'm really trying to have a culture within a culture. And we'll get back to the home building. Safety, to feel like you matter. I think that's one of the strangest messages out in the world right now is, and a lot of them are causes I care about, but the message is you're human, you're a parasite, you're destroying the planet, you're this, you're part of this system that's destroying these people. There's a lot of things to get nihilistic about and to feel like, oh, well, I don't matter, I'm just taking up space. I'm just creating more plastic in the world. I'm just, you know, continuing to oppressed people. Whatever it is, there's a million things that will strip you of your own personal I'm trying to find the right word for it, of your own personal agreement that you're here and that you get to be here and that you were born, you didn't ask to be born, and this is your experience. Right now, we're having a co-experience. Over on my side of the chair, I'm continuing to learn how to experience being Sam. And that's what I'm going to do until the day I die or the day that the earth explodes or whatever. But as somebody who's been very suicidal in the past and may feel those feelings again, you know, I don't pretend like I've conquered all feeling and emotion. I'm here. And so when I hop online now, especially when I'm home or somewhere that I'm trying to feel safe and somebody's telling me about what a piece of shit I am or this, you're gone. I don't care if you work for Peace Corps. I don't care. You're gone. Because I invited you in and you're now disinvited. And what do you think? Like if parents wanted your help and to say, hey, my son's, my son or daughter's talking about what you guys are doing. I want to be supportive. What would your check-in checklist kind of look like?
Yeah, well, that's a great question. And it's easy to just look at indigenous cultures and tribal lifestyle and take a look at that and what happened there, right? You alluded to a few things earlier too when you were inviting your son in participatory decision-making and leadership. But young people are nurtured and loved based on their developmental level. And then they actually start to take on responsibilities in the family, but with praise, with encouragement, with appreciation. Appreciating your child all the time, authentically, is a very powerful technique. If it's the parents, it's really going to be about how do they see themselves? What energy are they bringing into the equation? Are they filling their pot up with love? Are they receiving love for themselves? Are they allowing it? Are they taking breaks? I had a great pastor say one time, this is one thing I remember that he said after going several times, and I don't go to church. I've been to church some years. I'm a spiritualist, not a religious. But he said, your relationships are going to be based upon how you talk to yourself. You're going to treat people according to how you treat yourself. So self-love and allowing yourself to be loved and respecting yourself is where I would say with the parents. And then I'd say, now you see how good that feels? Don't you want to give that to your kid? And I know, so then spend that time with them. But as far as what does the young person need, well, it depends upon their age, but definitely opportunities to use their own creativity. One thing that CEOs were asked one time, a bunch of successful CEOs were asked about their childhood, and what was common about their childhood was that their parents gave them an opportunity to create and activate that creativity by providing them with the resources that they needed to build a octagonal sandbox, to build a swing set, to build their own thing, to dig a tunnel and do something with it, to grow some trees and do different things. The parents let them do it, gave them the resources, and allowed them to grow. The Montessori concept is an amazing concept. You walk in and you choose your path, and you get to choose what you play with, and it's okay, and you learn from it, right? So the safety, absolutely, right, but the caring, but also taking a very interest, like noticing your child, what they're doing, paying attention to it, seeing what they're doing, what they like doing, and then giving them what they need to continue to grow. And one of the things I learned from the pandemic from young people, they're incredibly resourceful. So these young people were coming up with ideas about business, new things. I have to say that, I'm always an innovative thinker, and I love having innovative conversations. We've had a few. But since the pandemic, I've had several conversations with young people, and I particularly like talking to young people because they have great ideas. Like, could we protect food without packaging? Is there some kind of way to do that, right? One of the ways to make Oakland students have the same experience as Marin students, the difference is a transportation bridge. If you can get kids, shuttle them from home to school, to an after-school program, back to home, so they don't have to ride the bus in the streets, they're going to have a pretty good experience. If the parents have economic job, so they don't have to work 3 jobs, or, you know what I mean, they take the stress out of life. So there's a lot of things that can be done. But looking at stress factors, how can we turn that around into thriving factors? And you know what? It's up to each individual, though, and this is the work that we all need to do as a society. Like you said, society keeps painting this stuff. We have to see ourselves as valuable, no matter what anybody else says. And we can make this earth work. We can work together, and we can make this earth really work. And we can have animals have their spaces, we can have our spaces, and this planet can thrive. Well, we're going to have to learn to work together. It's an interesting thing about humans. At first, when they came out, they for survival reasons, they became tenacious to destroy animals nearby them, because if they didn't, the animals would destroy them. But they didn't stop there. Unfortunately, they developed this habit of killing everything. Now they've killed everything in the planet and protected themselves. So humans are pretty safe now they turn on each other. So we're missing something here. You know, we could have a beautiful life. Why are we spending so much money on guns when we could be spending money on making life really good and stuff? Because people have a fear-based mentality. And that's the whole gets into the capitalism thing. And so there's a lot of things in the system. So you could talk about values that the parents have. You know, are they valuable? Are there values in making money and working in the system and having that regular job? Or do they really want to look at their life and what they're showing their kids and try to bring a better experience to them?
Well, I think unfortunately life is so fast moving, so fast paced. By the time you wake up, there's emails you got to answer. It's like your day combined with your habits is almost predestined without intervention, right? Without you saying like, hey, I'm going to take a moment. I'm going to think about what I want to do today. What is my day about? What values, as you said, or virtues, as I like to say, do I want to really try and care? You know, every day tends to be a little bit different for me because there's days where I want to spotlight, hey, I want to be kinder and sweeter to my partner or to my son. I want to be more patient with my mother, you know, and bit by bit, some of those get to become a bigger part of my kind of programming. But it's so hard, you know. I've noticed talking to other parents where I'll be like, oh, yeah, you know, what values do you want to teach so-and-so? And it's almost like you'd think they'd have an answer prepared for it. They don't. And that's not faulting them. That's just pointing out that, like, there's a lot of room for more consciousness in this. And for you to, you know, like right now with my son, there's a bunch of stuff I want for him. But what his superpower is right now, that is revealed to me at least, is that he's incredibly kind and he's incredibly sweet. And when the gang is picking on a kid, he's not joining that for now. You
know what? And that sounds like you. You're that, Sam. He got that from you.
He's sweeter than me.
But you would be too if you didn't go through all the hard stuff you went through.
That's possible.
Yeah, absolutely. And so people have to learn now to not be led by the nose by all these gadgets and all this money making and take back their lives. And what do I want my life to be like? In the book, The Untethered Soul, it's an amazing book. It's a very simple concept, is like your mind is the problem. There's nothing wrong with your soul. There's nothing wrong with your heart. It's your mind's broken. So don't give it so much power and start coming from your heart more and coming from your soul more. And then your mind can become a better partner in that. But when the mind's leading everything, when the mind's trying to be satisfied, there's just not going to be any happiness. It's just part of the deal. The mind's broken, especially when you grow up in a very difficult situation. I think even the smartest people and the healthiest people in the world, their minds say stuff to them like, nobody wants to hear that, or that's stupid, or, you know, and who asked you, right? Your mind talks to you when you don't even want it to. So learning to not pay so much attention to all that disparate chatter that goes on inside your brain and start getting into what feels good. The thing about the body, and I'm kind of going into my latest techniques for healing and recovery, the body is made to receive information. So the mind stops that from happening by focusing on something else. So receive the power, receive the energy from the earth, and let that power how the mind operates, instead of the mind trying to run the show and saying the body doesn't need this. So that's a big answer to your question about the parents and the adults. So you know what's the easiest way to do all this kind of stuff? It's just get people to play and then ask, like you did with your son, how's the video? How do you like playing? How did you like drawing? We just did some drawing. We just cooked a meal, and one of the solutions for this family was to have 5 other families get together and cook together and have a barbecue and have their kids play together. And they had a great time. And how did that go? It was great. It was therapy, believe it or not, but I didn't tell them it was therapy. This is the kind of therapy I want to do now, which is just, it happens you heal by doing things that are good for you. We can talk about what's wrong here and what the solution is, but the actual healing occurs when I go out and have fun with some friends and do something meaningful, and I'm there for them and they're for me. That's healing. And so I think that kind of activities was what I would promote to the families. I'd try to steer them towards doing activities that would make them all feel good and feel like winners, because you operate better when you're in that space.
Can you talk a bit? One of the things that I kind of picked up on is you said, one of the lessons I learned later, but more recent growth pattern has to do with shame.
Yes, sir.
Could you tell us a bit about the journey?
So, shame was tough because no matter what, it was kicking my ass. And so sober 10 years, 2007. And I tried with everything, tried different therapists, and I finally found this. He was a Christian therapist. And the only time I saw him was for these, I saw him 2 or 3 times for the same thing. He talked about EMDR. And what we did was we identified my earliest childhood memory where I was just completely dressed down. And that happened to be when I was about 5 years old. I had some swords that I'd gotten for some kind of thing, and I hit a kid with the sword. So my dad took me down to the basement, put the spotlight on me, put me on a stool, and spent about an hour just sneering at me, cussing me, telling me I shouldn't have been born. And you know what? Now, it wouldn't have been a problem except that he burst through my belief system, and I started to believe what he was saying. And this is where some of our beginnings of mental health issues occur, is when we adopt the beliefs of someone who's very disrespectful towards us. So we went back to that memory, and we went live there. My therapist was with me. I was there. I had God with me. I had me as a little boy there, and my dad was there. And we took a ball and stuff, and it's part of the technique is that you use your hands and you're using some kind of motion that helps with changing the memory. And at one point, I was like, I shouldn't have been born. And he goes, my therapist said, why don't you ask God? I said, God, was I a mistake? And he said, no, I'm really glad you're here. And if you will let me, I will restore you to what I put you onto this earth. If you allow me to, if you quit doing it yourself.
Wow.
And I got it. And from that point on, I started to really pursue self-love. And then this PTSD thing is a monster, being afraid of men and whatnot. In 2010, I was fighting human trafficking at this point with one of the churches I was affiliated with. And I had started up but I was mostly because of the girls and what they had gone through. I related to a lot of the stuff they had gone through, but I had never been I'd never been raped like that and all that. But I'd related to the drug use and the abuse and all this kind of stuff. So I got invited. I got the opportunity to go to the sheriff's department in San Francisco. They have a recidivism program for violent offenders. You have to be on great behavior, and then for the last year of your term, you get to go into this program where they try to restore your empathy. I went into there and I watched it. So now I'm with 100 men who are violent, and I'm listening, I'm watching, and what they're doing is they're actually listening to victims, and they're reflecting back what they heard. Then they put them in circles, and they got them to get in touch with the time that they got stepped all over. Because you step on somebody so much, you step the empathy out of them. So what they did was they kind of brought them back to that place like I had my experience. I walked away from that. I need to work with the boys from now on in this way. So what I started to do is include talking about the value of treating women better when you're in a relationship. And when I talked to girls, I started talking about diversifying your needs for love. I used the example of finances. I asked them so I had these girls that were very boy happy, and they're vulnerable to this kind of Romeo pimping thing that they use. The boys pretend to be their boyfriend. Their mothers get involved. They get the girl to come into the house. Then they say, do me a favor, and they start trafficking her. And they go, I'll be outside the door and all this bullshit, right? So it took the girls that were real boy crazy and just made that they needed love, and they needed to know that they were valuable. And I said, let's look at money. I put on the board and I started, if you want to make money when you're 25, how many different ways? They said job. I said, what else? So we got about 7 things on there. And I said, now that's great. Look at all. So if one of these funding streams dries up, you still got funding. I said, now let's look at love. And so look at the different ways you could be loved. A dog, a pet, your mom, your grand, all these different things. But the abuser wants to cut you off of all those things. So you don't want that. You want to continue. So anyone that tries to cut you off from one of your sources of love, just walk away from them and diversify your love. Super powerful, right? So as I go into the shame stuff and then continue to work on the PTSD, I started talking to a shaman and just told my story, and she wanted to help out. And she goes, can we have a session? And then she goes, there's an animal that's come for you.
Oh, whoa, wait. I got to introduce this one.
All right.
Okay.
Because you know this one.
Yeah, this one's getting edited in a special place of honor and
awesome stuff.
So one of my first memories of you was coming in the tea shop. You've got, I forget what they were.
That's when I started drawing too.
Pastels.
Yes.
Paper.
After that, I started drawing.
And there was this, I'm going to be honest, like a rudimentary drawing of a tiger.
Mm-hmm.
And I go, oh, what are you drawing? But you were not afraid. Like the way you were drawing was somebody who did not care what anybody else thought of the drawing. You're not, you're not tentative. You were just putting color down on the paper, drawing this tiger. And I said, what's going on? And you told me, oh, I saw this shaman. She told me I'm a tiger. So I've been watching tiger videos all week. And I've been drawing tigers and trying to learn what I'm supposed to learn from this animal, which led me to go do it. I got a horse. That's how the past guest, just before this episode, ended up being a friend of mine. Is she got put in my life. She said, oh, I'm a horse rancher. I said, okay, we should be friends because I need to learn about horses. Tell me about the tiger thing.
That's great, Sam. And thanks for that. You reminded me of how freeing it is to just draw and use the chalk pastels and go over and over. And it's actually part of that motion, right? No, but so I was I've been umpiring softball and baseball. And as you know, it can get contentious on the field, especially when things don't go a person's way. And the codependent part of me would, in the beginning, when I first started umpiring, would go, oh, I got to make that guy happy somehow. So I was past that, but intellectually I knew better. But on the inside, I still had the, I need to do something to get that right. And I'm battling within myself, right? So I wasn't exactly comfortable. I was like using tools to deal with men, but I wasn't really comfortable still. So we do the tiger thing, and she does this drumming, and she goes, there's an animal that's come for you. Do you want to know what it is? And the drumming thing, like whenever I hear this, it's a Native American Sioux Indian wide, large circle drum. And
hand drum, right?
Yeah, that certain sound, man, and my tiger comes. But anyway, I had major experiences with the tiger after that, including doing intergenerational healing of my parents and their parents, where I got a clue about my message. And when my nephew took his life, my tiger showed him the way to heaven, and came back. Very powerful. So this tiger comes, and she goes, this is your animal, your spirit animal. And that was a Friday, and the next day was Saturday, and that's when I spend my weekends umpiring 6 games on Saturday, 5 games on Sunday, pretty regularly. And she says, why don't you have the tiger with you? We talked a lot about it. So I invited the tiger to sit next to me during the whole game, and I just kept imagining the tiger was there. I go out to second base one time, and early in the game, and 2 coaches walk up to me, and I'm calm as can be. And they talk to me differently, and people have been talking to me differently ever since, because the tiger gave me courage. And so I can't tell you how gratifying it is to be with you, with anyone now, and I'm free to just be me. I don't have to worry about fear or hurting, anything like that. I have the power of the tiger in me, and the tiger, if you look at it, it just, like, females lay open for the tiger. He doesn't have to go chase nobody. The tiger, the animals know that it's not to go near it, and the tiger only pounces when he wants to, and is a very wise animal, and only utilizes what it utilizes when it needs to utilize, and it's afraid of nothing. So I love it. Along the way, I've also brought in the crows for long-term vision and the coyote for playing. The coyote teaches me to play. And I've had encounters with both of those animals and several times, which it's just great to have this kind of extra thing in my life.
I loved it. I think it's, yeah, I don't even think it's the way I see it is it's a good meditation to reconnect back into something in the natural world. You don't have to feel, you can approach it from whatever distance you want to. But I learned from you because you dove in and you said, I'm going to watch tiger videos. I'm going to read about the animal. I'm going to draw with the animal, and I'm going to treat this as an opportunity to get to know myself with the animal as the prompt about how does this animal move through the world, because we're very detached from the natural world, very, very detached. And when I get particularly unwell, I go back off the grid, and I can go camp by myself. Thankfully, that's a skill I have. And you will be reminded of some of the ways that that are in you all along, that this weird concrete world tends to make us forget. One of them, I was incredibly sick. This is a good camping story. I was incredibly sick. This was during the time where we first met, where I didn't know if I wanted to come back to the show. I didn't know if I wanted to be in public. I didn't, I was basically like, should I just be a deadbeat? Like, is that because I have no energy? I hate this pressure that this show is putting on me. And I went out to the woods with my dog. We set up a very basic camp. And in the middle of the night, everything's good until the middle of the night, some animals start messing with our tent. And in our area, they're coyotes, but in that moment, they felt like wolves because I have no energy. And I'm with this tiny dog who's terrified. And I'm terrified because I have no energy. And there was this moment where from deep within, this burst of energy comes with no one else is here to scare away the coyotes. It's either you or nothing. And that something about that was very freeing.
Was it a voice you heard?
I experienced it as a voice. But the point is I jumped up, I got out, I let the rest of the natural world know that was my campsite for the night. Didn't see him again. But I didn't have the energy to move like that in that moment. I was very diminished. I was very slow. Everything was slow, and everything felt like I wouldn't, if I exerted energy, it would kill me for the next little bit. And to have that burst of primal fight or flight come back and to go, oh, whoa. No, the energy's there. It's just buried. Just to be reminded, it's like, best way I could put it is, when you're devastated, heartbroken, or hopefully you never knew that, but let's just assume you've lived a normal life and you've known what that feeling of devastation and heartbreak feel like. And the first time that you have some love or some crush energy pop back up and you realize, oh my gosh, my heart isn't completely smashed to smithereen because I'm all of a sudden now interested in another human. It was like that, but with energy, where I was like, dead, I'm going to be dead. My energy is always going to be depleted, to, oh, there's energy there. It's just not like whatever you're doing in life is not accessible. That led me on to taking a carpentry job with David Swain, who said, hey, can you put up nice clear cedar siding on my house like they do in the Netherlands? I'm not a carpenter. I guess he knew I had tools and had carpentry skills. I was a carpenter at one point, but I wasn't advertising that as a service. And I went to his house and put up the siding. I had all kinds of energy. That was a huge clue. Like, oh, you do have energy, just not in the way that you've been, not with the way you've situated your life.
Super fascinating, right?
Yeah.
How does this energy come in all of a sudden? I have two major stories. Because in my view, maybe God created the world and it runs by itself. Like it restores itself. It has wind, rain, sun, just continues to rock and roll, right? And so you figure, oh, maybe that's God might have, that's all we get to see of God is that watch the earth. Okay. I can't explain though, just like you just have the story. I have two major stories where I can't explain that it had to be, how does this power reach in and help me at the most critical time? I got two stories. So on the day that I was sober 7 months, I've been sober continuous for 25 years. On the day I was sober 7 months, I was real squirrely. I've been doing great. I've been going to my meetings. I'd done that. I've been working the steps with my sponsor. I've been gotten into service, but I felt squirrely. So I drove to San Francisco where my drug dealer that I used to buy cocaine from lived. And I used to buy about 2 to 2.5 grams of cocaine a day, which equals about, let's say around $200 a day back then. This was many years ago, but still. So this guy makes, let's say between $3,000 and $4,000 a month just from me. All right. So I show up at his house. He goes, what are you doing? I go, he was in the neighborhood, so come on in. So we start talking about what you've been doing. I tell him, stuff like that. He goes, so why are you here? I go, I just thought maybe I would get some, from you. He looked at me and he goes, nah, I'm not selling to you. I get back in my car. I find the closest AA meeting. I go to it. And I felt like I was sitting in the palm of God's hands. I felt so safe. I've never felt that safe since, before or after. And then I checked my phone as I'm driving, and I found out that there's a message, my dad had died. So I wouldn't be here today without that intervention. The second biggest one happened when I was river rafting on Memorial Day weekend 5 years ago. And I had taken a group of people up on the Class 5 rapids. And it was a year ago, I had spilled out at the bottom of this rapids they called Tunnel Chute Rapids. Miners had dynamited the river because it was wide there to create this chute and this really fast moving thing. They actually make you get out of the raft, look at what you're about to do, tell you what you need to do, stay in the middle of the thing, follow directions. We're going to go through this amazing, block long rapids. Okay. So the second time I do this, we're the fourth boat. And I have a leader. She's a woman. She's been doing it for 9 years. We go in backwards at the start, at the top. And this rapids goes like this. It winds like this. So there's rock walls, and it's about 30 feet deep of water. As soon as we hit the top, as soon as we hit it backwards, the boat flips. I'm underneath, walking with my hands. Two other women are also underneath the water. One actually stayed on top, and she couldn't swim. She kept her head above the water somehow. The other woman was like me, deep underwater. She did not hit any rocks. As I'm trying to walk my hands to get out from underneath the raft, bam! I hit a brick wall. Not a brick wall, I hit a wall, or rock wall, and my knee splits wide open, and I lose all my oxygen, and I gulp in water for air. My body flips around, and I hit my back against another wall, and I do the same thing. And now I'm trapped against the wall, and I'm saying to myself, shit, I think I'm going to die here. All of a sudden, out of nowhere, is a voice, close your mouth and hold on. And it was a woman's voice. So I did that. And they took me out of the water. They benched me. I didn't even realize my ankle was ripped also. I didn't even know it because I found out when I first tried to stood up after they bandaged my knee. And I was going to go on. But I asked them, I said, so thank you so much to the guide for saying that. I think you saved my life. She goes, I didn't say that. Nobody said that. So God came to me as a woman in that situation. And that was the beginning of the shaman stuff started to happen right a little bit after that. And meeting with and learning more about how to be happy. I started because I couldn't do my physical, mental health. I used physicality for my mental health. Now I couldn't do that. So I had to actually face up to what I had left to deal with emotionally. And I started doing way more of these shaman kinds of natural healings, Reiki, different approaches. And I'm super grateful because it changed my life. I'm much happier than I was 5 years ago.
Wow.
And I'm even getting where my vitality back. I'm playing baseball twice a week and I'm feeling like good because of the energy. This energy you were talking about, I feel like it's always there. It's my mind that blocks me from it. So the freer my mind is, the more the energy comes from the earth or, the universe. So whenever I can, if I'm by the ocean, last night I went to Rodeo Beach. What a beautiful beach. And the waves are coming in strong and the wind and the sun and the moon and just take it in and absorb it, because our bodies are designed to absorb things, take information in. And that's what gives us mental health, in my view, is absorbing beautiful things.
I like to end the show the same way every time. But if I could hand you my phone right now, and on the other end was young Rob, get to pick whatever moment you want, whatever you think you wish you could intervene on, which you probably have intervened on in some of the therapeutic work that you've done. But little Rob got a call, and you were on the other end. Just like you're talking to him, speak the message that you'd want to let him know to help guide him on his journey to the man you've become today.
I love you. You're beautiful. I want you to do everything that you feel called to do, especially things like singing, art, playing. Let love guide you, because your love is so powerful. You should just bask in it and give it to everybody. You've got so much to give. Enjoy your life. And I can't wait to see you on the other side.
And if people want to collaborate with you, whether, for their own private homeschooling group or whether they work for a school district, or where can people find more of your stuff?
Well, they can find me on LinkedIn, Robert Dousa, Dousa, on LinkedIn. It's probably the easiest, because my email is thestrengthsapproach@gmail.com, and people might misspell that. So you can start with finding me on LinkedIn.
Thank you, Rob.
Thank you, Sam. You're awesome, bro.
I'm going to have you record a couple things so that we can have. Could you say, my name is Rob Dousa. Mm-hmm. I do this, just the kind of titles. We'll edit that back in. Mm-hmm. Just kind of who you are, what you do, or what you have done.
Mm-hmm. I'm Rob Dousa. I'm now a free agent at helping people, no longer constrained by county offices of education or school districts. I can actually do the beautiful things that really can work with young people, like take them outdoors and build trails with them, and take them to music studios. I'm just so happy and excited to offer healing approaches to young people and to anyone that wants help.
Give me it one more time. Say, I'm Robert Dousa. I did this for the school district for 5 years or 10 years or whatever. Just kind of give us the CV, because we're going to edit that back in. Okay. Because before people might want to tune in, I want to hook them with, hey, man, I got some real practical experience.
Yep. Yeah, I'm Rob Dousa. Wanted to be a professional athlete, became a professional bartender, went to school, got a video production degree, got sober, started helping kids in the school district, became a school district program manager, managed a life coach team in Oakland for 15 years, came to Marin to do something good here and work as the Marin County project supervisor. And now I'm free to utilize all of my healing techniques with young people in a variety of ways, and collaborate with people. I love working with people. When I go to the tea house, I get regulated by the people that are in there.
Thank you, Rob.
Thank you, Sam.
Thanks for listening to the How to Human podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, you can watch these episodes in beautiful 4K on Patreon. That's patreon.com/howtohuman. The best thing you can do is to support us financially, although we know some people aren't able to do that. So you could write us a review on iTunes. It's absolutely free. And of course, sharing this episode with friends or family you think would enjoy it helps us find other people who might want to support our show and help us keep going. I hope you have a great day, and until next time, for more of us, you have a great day.